How's it going, everyone? And welcome back to another edition of the Stupid Questions podcast. Today on the pod, we're going to have a round two interview with Justin Slade. If you haven't listened to the first interview with Justin, before you listen to this one, I would highly recommend it because it gives a little bit of context to the conversation that we have and the topics that we cover. Justin is a swimming coach, has an extensive background in that, as well as many other things, as you can hear out in the first conversation. But in this conversation, we reference quite a bit the previous conversation with kind of the low that he's been in or was in, and the way he kind of came out of that in relating to life, marriage, health, and a number of other things. So don't want to spoil too much, but it is a very meaningful and deep conversation. So if you are interested in that, go check out the first episode. And without further ado, this is the second round two episode with Mr. Justin Slade. Actually, I've never recorded this early, and I just got out of the pool myself, so I've still got a little bit of the residual eye socket press marks. I don't know. What do the professionals call those? Just goggle marks?
Raccoon eyes, maybe.
Raccoon eyes, yeah. That makes
Something
sense.
like that.
Yeah.
But it makes you look like a real swimmer.
Yeah, quote.
Yeah. Dude, I like the stash. Is that new?
It is relatively new. I was growing the beard out since I got back. I raced just like said December 15. I hadn't shaved since then, and it was just getting so scratchy. And out here in Northern California, you got a lot of gravel bikers and mustache aficionados. So I thought, well, I'll try to fit in a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. I like it.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
You look like Ari.
Yeah. Dude, no, he's got a next level stash. Like that
Dude.
guy's got the circles and all that stuff on stuff.
Craziness.
That's too much maintenance for me. I consider just shoving my head bald constantly because it already takes too much time as well. But man, thank you so much for coming on. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah.
I'm trying to think the last time we talked. I forgot to look before, but it's been probably 9 months, 10 months, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it was almost a year, but maybe less, a little less.
Let me just look it up really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was almost a year.
Was it?
Yeah. Yeah, in May I aired the episode, but I think it was like 6 weeks ahead because at that point I was only recording or releasing one a week, and I had this ridiculous backlog. So now I'm doing 2 a week, and it's not as much. This one will actually come out tonight or tomorrow. So
really?
Yeah.
Dude, that was crazy when that one came out. Like, I was surprised who said what and what got said in my circles. Like people who saw it, because you put it on our team website or our team
the Instagram or something.
Insta.
Yeah.
And I was just like took a deep gulp, like, oh. And then
let it happen.
It was 98% good,
Yeah.
2% was right. What's that?
Tell me that 98 and the 2% because I haven't heard anything. I'm curious to know if you're okay with sharing.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. Well, are we already going or we're not going?
We are going.
Oh, we are going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, I was actually, I guess you could call it, separated from my wife.
Yeah.
And so of course she watched. Almost everyone in my really close circle watched it.
Yeah.
And man, you had asked me
some pretty deep questions.
Yeah, some pretty deep questions, but one of them was maybe, who do I love? I can't remember, but there was one pretty deep question, and I rolled with my son, and I think just my son, and I didn't say anything about Amy, and I really caught it from her. Caught it from her, and I realized, I'm like, man, not only are we like physically separated at that point, like I definitely was like mentally kind of separated from her a little as well. But it's been a crazy year. It's been a really good year, and I am no longer separated from her. We're like back together, and it's really good. And
congratulations, man.
Thanks, dude. Thanks. Yeah. I nearly died. That was pretty
serious?
big deal. Yeah.
What happened?
I was when did I start feeling ill? You know what? I was probably already starting to feel ill probably last time we talked.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say ill, I would get these really bad stomach pains. And man, so many doctors asked me, like, type of pain is it? And trying to describe it. The best description I could give is I would always feel really full.
Mm.
Like I couldn't get a deep enough breath. It was like my GI system was like just full, and I
Yeah.
could never poop enough, and I could never burp enough, and I could never get to where it like went away.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just got kind of more and more frequent and worse and worse. And I was living by myself, so I wasn't really verbalizing it to anyone. I was just dealing it with myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, it came to a head like late July. I'd gone to the emergency room once in maybe like March, and they had done some tests and done some scans and said, "Hey, there's nothing going on. Like, just relax, it'll go away." Because it was just coming and going.
Mm.
But by July, it was really bad, and I got on my phone to my wife the one day, and I'm like, "I'm really hurting again." And between her and one of my friends, they're like, "Dude, you've got to go to the emergency. Like, you've got to
Yeah.
go." And so I didn't go to the emergency room. I went to an urgent care. And at the urgent care, I had this really nice nurse. And she kind of poked and prodded me a little and went through
Mm-hmm.
all the stuff. And when she came back in the room, she's like, "Hey, you need to go down to the emergency room. If I was you, I would go to the emergency room. I can't do anything for you, and I can't even really tell you what's wrong. But if I was you, don't go home. Go to the emergency room." Like, all
Yeah.
right. So I went, and went in there, and I was in a lot of pain. And they put me on some pain meds like right away, which helped.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they like looked me over and decided, they were like, "No, you're in the hospital." So they, within 24 hours, I'm like up on one of the floors of the hospital. And every time the pain meds wore off at this point, like I was just hurting more, and it was just like
Sheesh.
bad, bad, bad. And I was, yeah, just hurting, just couldn't. And they didn't know. They couldn't tell me anything. These docs would come and inspect me, and every morning they would come by and, "How you feeling?" I'm like, "I'm really hurting." And they sent me for more tests and more scans. And eventually they got on this gallbladder thing.
Mm.
And he's like, "We're going to test your gallbladder." And it was one of these things where you drank the dye, and then the you looked at it on a screen, and you could see
Yeah, where it's
this
going.
dye moving through your whole system, and your gallbladder like expanding up. And then as your gallbladder then dissipated the stuff. And we were watching this thing, and the tech lady had told me, "Hey, if there's a problem, if it's good, this is what we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's bad, this is what we'll see." And we sat, and it was 1 hour. I had to sit there for 1 hour, not moving.
Torture.
And I was hurting until, yeah. Anyway, we watched this thing play out, and I'm like, that gallbladder's not working right.
Yeah.
She's like, "I'm just a tech, but that's what I see as well." Cool, we found it. We're in
Yeah.
business. We found it. And so I go back to my room. But the way things work, obviously in a hospital, no one's reacting fast. And, well, I guess unless you're like actually about to kick it or something. But
Yeah.
the next morning, the doc comes in, and I'm waiting for him to say, "Yeah, we got the gallbladder test back, and it was not good. We found what it is." He's like, "Yeah, we did the gallbladder thing. Everything's good there." And what, and he keeps moving on. I'm like, "Time out. Like, everything's good? Like, we watched it and it's not good." He's like, "Yeah, it's not perfect, but it's within the percentage range of what we would call good. And I can assure you, what you're going through, that gallbladder is not responsible for what you're feeling." And I just start bawling. And I'm just like,
I'm
"Oh my
sure, man.
gosh. Da, 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 da." So now I've been in there for like 3 days, 4 days, something like that.
Ugh.
And they still don't know. And I'm still hurting. And I'm still on these pain meds. And then we get to like the next morning or that afternoon, he comes back, the surgeon. And I'm like, "Hey, are we going to do anything?" He's like, "I don't know what to do." He's like, "I mean, we could, I don't know if he suggested or I suggested it, but it came up, we could take the gallbladder out if you want. You don't need it anyway. And it would definitely eliminate that as the problem, but I can assure you that is not the problem.
Mm.
I'm like, dude, we're definitely taking my gallbladder out. Like, definitely, it's happening.
Yeah.
I want my gallbladder out. We need to do something because I cannot live like this and deal with this anymore.
Mm.
He's like, all right, well, I'm not super excited about that, but if that's what you want, I'll do it because you're within the range that we could do it. We have a reason.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you're right. It's in that percentage of whatever. And he's like, we'll do it probably tomorrow morning. I'm like, thank you so much. Crying again with joy.
Oh my word. What a roller coaster.
15 minutes later, I've just asked for some apple juice and orange juice because I hadn't been allowed to eat that morning again because I was going for, when you're going for tests, they don't let you eat a drink. So half your life in there, you're just like not allowed to eat.
Mm-hmm.
So I've just gotten the orange juice and the surgeon comes in the door and he's like, hey, we're doing it now. I have an opening. Let's go. And in the hospital, normally there's like what they call transport. So they send these guys to come and they either wheel your bed or they put you in a wheelchair and they take you. It's the transport guys. They're taking people around the hospital all day long.
Yeah.
This surgeon proceeds to kick the brakes off my bed and starts wheeling me out of the room himself. And the nurses are just scattering. They're like, doctor, we've got this. We can do it. He's like, I'm capable of pushing a bed. And he's just like on a mission now, like getting me down there.
He saw something, huh?
I don't know what it was that he did it. Anyway, now I'll just cut the story somewhat short. We go through the surgery. We get done. I get out. I wake up. I'm like, wow, I feel great. Awesome. Get out of the gown. I'm going home. I feel good. 3 hours later, I'm like at home. Surgeon calls me later on that afternoon. How you feeling? I'm like, dude, I feel great. It was definitely the gallbladder. We're all good. Dude, that night, and I went home.
Yeah.
That night, it starts hurting again.
But
it gets
worse.
What it was times 10.
Oh my
And so now it's 4 a.m. and I am like climbing the walls in pain. My wife's like, dude, we got to go back. Gets me in the car. We go back to the hospital, back to the emergency room. They're like, you're back? I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Back into the admission place, back up to the floor, over the next 24 hours. And they're like, now they're re-scanning, retesting. They come in and they're like, hey, during that surgery, they burned the doc placed a tool where he shouldn't have, and they've burned your small intestine. And so they burned a hole in it. So we're going to have to get you in right away. And so now to get your gallbladder, it's these like 3 little holes, they just put these 3 holes and they like go in. So I come out of this one now because they just rush me in. And I have now this huge thing in my tummy, like that long, this deep. Like I'll never look, my abs will never look as good as they used to.
No more 6-pack.
They go in there to fix this burn. They're like, dude, we got to fix this thing right away.
Yeah.
And, we're going through the mindset. My wife's like, we're going to sue these people. Blah, blah, blah. This is crazy. All my friends like, dude, you'll never have to work again. Like, this is going to be, I'm just like, dude, get me out of this pain, please.
Yeah, seriously.
And then, anyway, when they're in there and I come out and I wake up and the surgeons come back around and like, hey, we went in, we cut out the segment that was burned. They're like, but we found another segment that was completely dead and dying. I forget the word they used.
Necrotic or something? I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? So we've cut out 2 other sections as well. And those are the ones that we think might have been responsible for the initial pain that you were in before it all started.
Oh my word.
So it was like, and they would never have, none of the scans or anything picked that stuff up. It wasn't until they actually cut me open and went in to fix the burn that they found the real thing. So it was like all just connected together and like, Anyway, once I got out of that, came out of that, now I'd had like major like GI surgery.
Yeah.
And man, oh man, the next like 5 days was so, I've never, like I couldn't hold my bowels. I was just like pooping everywhere all the time. The nurses are cleaning up after me. I was on these pain meds, which
Make you all sick and gross.
yeah, just like the thing about them was they just didn't last very long. And I was like, just wanted them because I just wanted the pain to be gone.
Mm.
And they would like, basically for those like 3 days, my life was just like watching the clock until the next time. You could only get them like every 2 hours, but they would really only last for like 10 or 11 minutes. So for 10 or
Are
11
you
minutes, I was
serious?
like, good. And then for like an hour 45, I'm just watching the clock, begging them, like, please, can we just do it again? It was brutal, dude. It was absolutely brutal. And like I said, like couldn't control, like, oh. Anyway, and then there would be these long, dark nights. You know, my wife would leave because she would have to, you know, go home and sleep. And
You're just trapped in your mind in the pain.
dude, I like got so in touch with God. It was ridiculous. There were
Tell me about
points,
it.
man, I was down like in this imaginary like dungeon down there, dark, full of, and I knew there was nothing no one could do. I could push that nurse button as much as I wanted. I could scream for doctors. I could, no one, there was nothing. There was like, dude, you are in this pain and you're just going to deal with it.
Yeah.
Like what? There was nothing I could do. I couldn't rip cords out. There was nothing I could do. I just had to sit in it.
Yeah.
And the only thing I could do was like really try and connect with God and just like beg him to like
Give me
be
some
there with me.
reprieve.
I
Yeah.
actually wasn't even begging him to take the pain away. I was just like, just be with me, help me with this. Which, when we really come down to it, right, is exactly what he wants, is us to just connect with him and ask him for his help. And so it was like, whoa, once I'd been there, and then I came out, eventually came out, and from then I was like on the rise. Like nothing was ever the same after that. Like I realized like there's nothing else. There's nothing else that was really important except that connection with God. I remember when I first came, it first happened, it was so fresh in my mind. I'm like, man, all there is in this whole world is like, there's God and there's everything else.
It cuts it all out.
Everything else is just everything. There's nothing else. There's just that and that. And I'm like so stuck in all of this all the time. And that's like the opposite of how it's supposed to be. So like I've just tried to like stay as close to that mindset. So, man, I'm not perfect, dude. I'm like, I get off on tangents all the time, worried about like what swim set they're going to do and this issue at the pool and that issue at home and this issue at the store and that issue on the road. But I try and keep much more higher in my mind of like, when it comes down to it, there's God. And if it's not God, it's part of that everything else, and that everything else is just not important. Like it's just not important. So it was pretty intense time, man.
Yeah.
And now, you know, I've had to do all these follow-ups with all these specialists, and what they've pinned it on now is what caused my intestines to like die, essentially. I have something thrombosis. I don't even know all the terms. I can't remember it all. But I basically have a blood clot in the vein,
gastrointestinal thrombosis.
It's between my liver and my small intestine. So the blood is not able to flow cleanly through there. And it got so blocked up, I think that they're like, hey, that's the best I can understand it.
Yeah, it basically just started depriving of oxygen, starts to die.
Yeah. But they can't get rid of it. So now I'm on blood thinners for life.
Oh,
and they're just like, hoping that thing just kind of, they said it won't go away. They can't surgically remove it. I guess it's super, super rare. And yeah, when I go to these specialists and they read through my whole thing, they're like, what the heck happened to you? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
And it's just like, every one of them I can see on their faces, like, this is the weirdest thing we've ever seen. This whole thing you went through, like, and I've realized now in talking to more people and like, man, when your gastro gets messed with, that like get GI line, it's
Bad news.
hardcore. So yeah, and a few of them are like, man, you almost died there. I'm like, well, I guess I didn't feel like I almost died, but they're like, dude, you almost died.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. Like if I'd stayed just in that trailer, not
and
going
just
to the emergency room, not gonna that, I would have. And they were like, dude, you could have well have just been done. So that was my main thing I went through.
Yeah.
So now my life is like pre-hospital and post-hospital, like, you know, the whole thing.
Going through those moments, it's like impossible, I think, to like really, at least in my experience, I've never been able to like fully embrace and just totally sit with and accept the pain. Cause I've been in a few places where, I've been in a few places where like I'm begging God to take this away. Like I had appendicitis and I remember being a kid and like they couldn't figure it out and they didn't think it was that. And, I was in the hospital for a couple days before they decided, oh, we got to take this out before it explodes. But in those moments, I have never been able to be like, okay, I'm sitting in it. I accept it. And like, like you're talking about, like be as close to God or just think about that in the moment. Like that's crazy. But I almost wonder if it's possible for these like life changing moments that we go through, like, can you have them without some form of just intense pain or trauma?
I don't know. I mean, how else does God get our attention?
Yeah.
He doesn't get our attention when we get a promotion or when we win $1 million or when we get a nice new car.
It puts us asleep.
He doesn't get our attention, not in the same way. I mean, maybe we express some gratitude in those moments, maybe a little bit, not to the same degree, though, as when you're like hurting so bad that there is no other. So I don't watch your podcasts. Change segue.
Yeah,
I don't watch very any episodes. Right. I try not to watch too much of anything.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I listened to your number 100 one.
Oh, okay.
Dude, you're amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot.
Yeah, like you are amazing.
Thanks, man. I'm really fortunate.
Yeah, I didn't listen to it all, but I listened to a bunch of it before. I was out of the car and then I never went back to it. But yeah, you're able to really like share your thing. That's amazing. That's amazing to be able to do that. I see why people will come on your show and like share with you because you're like, hey, this is just my truth, how it is for me.
Yeah.
And so then people will feel safe to like do that. And that's what it's about, right? That's what God wants, right? I think like, yeah, he wants us to rely on him and connect with him and love him. But then the only other thing is, okay, and now you need to do that with other people as well. If you do that with him and that with other people, that's all we're really asked to do, I think.
Yeah.
Me and my wife talk about this a lot now. Like, I don't think he wants anything else out of us. He definitely doesn't have a number in mind that we need to make. He definitely doesn't have a car that he thinks we should have.
Yeah.
Any of that stuff. It's just like connecting with people and loving on them.
Yeah.
Loving people you don't like. That's my tough one right now.
Yeah, I think it's tough for many of us. It's interesting you say that. First of all, thank you for listening to the episode, but pointing that out. I have had lots of opportunity to tell my story. So over the years, I've been able to fall on my face a few times and figure out what is articulate and what is not. So,
Uh-huh.
and I'm still figuring it out. But it's interesting that you say, like, that's really what it's all about, because again, coming from the Christian context that I grew up in, there was a lot of talk about, oh, we're the body of Christ and how do we operate together? And there's some passages in the Bible, and I can't remember where exactly it is. I think it may be in I can't remember if it's Mark or John. But anyway, talking about the body of Christ and how, the arm can't do anything without the legs, and that, the eyes and the ears, like, they're basically useless without each other.
Uh-huh.
And it's so interesting in today's popular culture and world. It's like so individualistic, and it's like, well, I'm this way and this is my truth and this is how we're going to make it work. It's like, well, really, in my thought and experience, it's like everyone is so drastically different, and we got to call each other out for essentially the BS, like, when we see that. And sometimes we can be wrong at making that judgment, but if we do it out of love and, like, truly want to see that person succeed, that, even after we have the exchange with that person that may be tough, both parties kind of go their own way and really consider the other side of the argument. I would say in most cases that happens with
Uh-huh.
me and being married. It happens with, my other family members and people that I really respect. And if you can have that respect, it makes a difference. But, like, yeah, being the body of Christ, everybody has different talents and skills and experiences, I think, is kind of the biggest thing that shape us into who we are. And if we can bring all those things together, like, there's really nothing with the Holy Spirit and with God's love that we cannot do on this earth. And unfortunately, it's a messed up, terrible place. And like you're saying, what is the only thing that really truly matters at the end of the day? Yeah, I've talked to a guy who is pretty close to a billionaire, and he got this crazy form of brain cancer. And for the last 6 months of his life, basically, after he figured out, like, it's going downhill, he transferred all of his stuff, to family and friends, and gave a lot of his wealth away. But really, what he was enjoying the most during that time was just, like, setting up 30 to an hour minute calls, spending with people just to, like, hear their story and give them whatever he could based on the experiences that he had in his
Uh-huh.
life. And, like, that touched me profoundly, because as I got to meet with this guy over the course of a few months, he obviously had some cognitive decline, and he was getting to a place where he's kind of repeating stuff, and he's having a hard time keeping short-term memory just in memory. And I was like, you know what? Like, yeah, at the end of the day, money is worth nothing. Time is the most valuable thing that we have in terms of exchange, and love is something that I think even transcends that
Oh
piece of
yeah.
currency. So,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So I was just telling one of the guys I coach with this morning that like when you coach, I used to think when you coach, like, because I'm known as like a hard ass coach. Like, I have this hard line, and I'm gruff and I'm loud, and you'll do it my way. This is how we're going to be successful. I feel like that's the impression people get from me.
Mm-hmm.
But I've realized over time, and I think I've been able to do it all along to a certain extent, but you really can't treat them all the same. You have to be able to, like, accommodate, like what you said, like their experience, the way they are. If you don't accommodate that to some extent, then you're not gonna, there is gonna be no connection between you and them, because
Mm-hmm.
you're not accommodating them in any way. You're just expecting them to completely bend to you.
Yeah.
And then if they're not connected to you, then they're not having as good a time. They're not enjoying it. They're not going to engage in the training process and the learning process to the same extent.
Mm.
And they're just not going to do as well. Whereas if I just kind of compromise slightly to how they are and what they might need, suddenly they enjoy it more. They engage with the whole thing more, and they're swimming a whole much better, which is what I really wanted all along. Like, we have the same outcome we're trying to get to. But for me, that's been like a learning thing, because I had definitely at the start, I was always like, no, 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 you guys have to do it my
Mm-hmm.
way. It's my way or the highway. This is how it'll be. And if you can't hack it, get out of here. And I
Mm.
still kind of go to that mindset to some degree sometimes. But when I'm in clear thought, I'm like, no, can't be like that. It can't be. They're not gonna get I'm not gonna get the most out of the most people if that's the way I do it, you know? So it's like finding that really subtle, yes, I'm the coach and I'm in charge and we're going to do it this very disciplined way. But in the end, if that then cuts off the connection, doesn't work. Because it's all about that connection, right? Like me and you talking or me and them like talking. If they're like, if we're connected, it's just a better experience.
Yeah.
So I think like, yeah, that's almost the biggest thing you can deprive other people of is like your connection to it. You know, if you don't connect to them, you're depriving them of like the biggest thing you have in a way. And I'm pretty sure God's like, no, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to connect with everybody. You know, to be best friends with everybody, but you're supposed to connect with them. Because the other big thing I think is, remember how you said, we're all so different. Everyone's so different. And that's true. Like on the externals and the personalities and the hair color and the body movements and the what we wear, so different. But, and this is something I learned in the room. It's like when you peel all of that away and you get down right into the middle, like we're all identical. We're really all identical.
Yeah.
In the rooms, we call it terminal uniqueness. You've got this idea that you're different than everybody else. That's a terminal thing. And you know what terminal means? Like, you're done.
Yeah, you're not going to be around.
We call it terminal uniqueness. Like, if you're like, but I'm not like any of you.
Yeah.
As long as you have that, I'm separate from you. You don't understand me. I'm on my own here. There's no one can understand me. That's like a terminal thing.
Yeah.
And we have to be able to be like, peel it all away, like we're identical. Like, and that's what I heard when I was listening to your thing. I'm like, man, it's like, I haven't gone through the exact same experience as you, but I'm like, we're like identical, identical. Even though our experiences are way different. You know, the particular incidents that you describe in your life, it's not like, oh, that happened to me as well. But the way your like spirit and soul was in those moments, like, oh, yeah. I get that. So, and it's cool when you experience that. It's really cool, right?
Yeah.
But we get caught up on the crazy stuff, man.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in the crazy stuff. You know, it's so interesting. I've been thinking a lot lately about just how to work through the hard things and like, because, you know, on this podcast, I ask a lot of questions about, you know, who people are. And the hope is that they'll be able to expose.
Why do you call it stupid questions when they're really the least stupid questions ever?
So when I originally came up with the idea,
sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, you're totally fine. When I originally came up with the idea to do a podcast, I had done a few in the past, and I have like a natural just desire and curiosity to connect with people one-on-one. And so I knew like that this could be a success, you know, as however you wanted to define it, but I knew I really enjoyed it. And I thought that if I named it something like Stupid Questions, that it would lower the hurdle to overcome with people when I invite them on. So it's like it's not going to be like some super stringent, like, hey, you know, what do you, I don't know, who are you? You know, because like that stuff, if some people knew, like if some people knew what I was going to ask them prior, they'd probably be more hesitant to come on. And it's been a little bit more difficult now that I'm getting a little bit of a reputation with some people. You know, Morgan Pearson?
Well, I know of him.
Yeah. So I had him on, and I don't know what he heard before, but, you know, I asked him some questions that were pretty poignant because, like, he lost his brother right before he qualified for a previous Olympic Games. And oh, you still there? There he is.
Dude, you like, make sure your thing is fully charged and then like, battery dead. Okay, the phone is fully charged, so we should be good.
Okay.
I am so sorry.
No, it's all good. We can make it work.
We were at, I was at hearing Morgan Pearson his brother passed away right before an Olympics.
Yeah, and so I was asking about that and trying to dive into some of that stuff, and I shared a little bit, that I lost my dad, so I was hoping that he would realize, like, okay, no, this isn't. It's coming from
Yeah.
a place that, like, I felt similar things. Obviously,
Yeah.
his situation was a lot different, but in the beginning, he was like, "Well, I'm not going to tell you that," and I respected that because it's like, I mean, he speaks his mind, and it helps me as I'm doing these things to really understand where that person is when they come in. Because I've had other
Yeah.
conversations with like Jackie Herring, and she was pushed back in the beginning because I asked her like, "Well, who is God to you? What is God to you? And why do you believe that?" And she was like, "Well, we don't have to get into that. We don't have to get into all of my family stuff." But then after we dove into it for a little bit, we kind of came to terms. She made a post on Instagram, which is still probably one of the most impactful things to me to this point, about it. And like, obviously that helped us grow a bit, but it really validated to me, like, it is worth taking the risk to ask questions that like help us to really be truly vulnerable, because in the world we've lived in for the past 10 years, it's like, I grew up in the 90s, born in 92, and I've seen obviously the popular culture changing quite a bit. But when I first went to like India or China for the first time when I was in high or college, there was a lot of the talk like, oh, everything's cheap in China, and the Chinese, they, the government cracks down on you, and you're not allowed to say whatever you want. And I visited some underground churches and this, that, and the other, and um, I've kind of noticed that our country in a lot of ways is, it's not the same, don't get me wrong, like this is still, they'd say, the best country to live in, but there's a lot of these like undertones that are
Yeah.
giving this same thing,
Yeah. You can't say that.
yeah, like
Don't
you're
talk about
afraid
that.
to, yeah, you're afraid to speak what you believe, and like we can't come to an understanding, of like just knowing who each other is. It becomes an
Yeah.
exhausting world to live in, because you
Yeah.
go to the grocery store, you see Sally, and you're like, "Oh, hey Sally, how are you? Oh, I'm good. Oh, that's great. Yeah, you getting this? Oh, the weather's nice today." And then those kind of conversations leave me just feeling empty and exhausted. And don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, like this podcast, it does take emotional energy to like dive into some of these things with people,
Yeah.
but it's totally worth it, because I think that's what actually grows us to a deeper level of understanding of each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I called it Stupid Questions.
That's cool. Do you remember where we were before that?
You were talking about God and talking about, everybody, terminal,
Terminal
unique,
uniqueness.
terminal uniqueness. And I was going to say also at the same point, like, yeah, it, it, I went through tons of different counseling and, talked to psychologists, and they all have their unique swing on things, but something that I've begun to learn is like, yeah, there is this concept of the inner child, which I think kind of goes along with what you're talking about, where we all are this person inside who is looking to be connected with and to be found interesting. And I think when, with the popular American culture, it's all about individualism, and we kind of lift ourselves up by our own bootstraps. This whole self deprecating, put yourself on a pedestal thing. I think there are some good aspects to it, but I think they're mostly not great. And
Yeah.
if each other can lift each other up, and like, and truly think, like when you said like, Seth, you're amazing. If I was to go around saying, "Oh, Justin, Seth's amazing. Did you know that?" Obviously there's an issue there. But when you say that, and if I can truly accept that and believe that, and not necessarily like make that my identity, but accept the fact that you like gave me an affirmation and then walk forward and give that affirmation to someone else, the circle is a lot more fluid in the way that we share those character traits that build us up, rather than like just kind of always keeping the focus on myself. So like, yeah, one more thing I'll just say super quick with the inner child thing. When this really hit me over the top of the head is, I was 18, and I had to think about this years later, but me and my mom, to that point, especially after my dad passed away, we fought tooth and nail for lots of reasons. And like, it got bad. Like, I love my mom now and we've made up with it, but she chased me around the house, whipping me with like some cords one time, because we were just like at that level. And I turned on her. I didn't hit her or anything, but I got so loud and I guess so scary that like, it was the first time I like broke her mentally. And years later, looking back on that, like that really hit me, because I'd never gotten a hold of my mom's attention in that way. And I don't think it was a good way to get the attention. But in retrospect, I realized like, oh my goodness, like I saw her in that moment as like an 8-year-old little girl crying whose father, her actual father, does not pursue a relationship with her. Her husband committed suicide. Her son's making all kinds of crazy decisions. Her 2 daughters are making wild decisions, and she feels totally uncontrolled or out of control. And like, it just broke my heart, and it actually brings me to tears thinking about it, because I realized at that moment, it's like, man, we're all just that inner kid
Yeah.
trying to fake our way to adulthood, and like, we're all scared. It's a scary world to live in, and when you
Fear.
don't have that connection
We're
that you're
ruled
talking
by
about,
fear,
yeah,
you know?
when you don't have that, it's like, it's painful, man. It's painful.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, in the rooms, they say that we all have this desperate need to love and be loved.
Mm.
And that's like at our real core. Like, we're just that little guy, or little girl, and we just have a desperate need to love and be loved.
Yeah.
And we go to like really wild, extreme ways to get both of those. But that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
You know, and if we can just kind of remind ourselves, hey, this is all it is at a really basic level. And so is him, so is she, so is he. That's where we're at. You know, like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And then that fear thing you said, like, it's just, you know, we're either acting in fear or we're acting in love. And they say those two things can't both be there. There's either fear or there's love. And, you know, it's one or the other. So in every moment when stuff starts to get crazy for me, I just try and remind myself, I'm like, which am I in right now? And, you know, if it's crazy 100% of the time, I'm just in fear at that moment.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, hey, if you can, you don't have to be scared. You're not that little guy anymore who has to like fight to stay alive. And yeah, it's intense stuff when you get down to it. But
Yeah.
man, if you don't, like you said, if you don't like dig in and figure it out, you're just gonna constantly have this like nagging. What is the purpose? What is the purpose of life? What am I doing? What is this whole thing? What are we doing? You know, and when you do start digging, then you realize, like, dude, it's pretty simple. The whole thing is actually really simple. Then not easy. No one said easy. Simple
Yeah,
is not
sure.
equally easy, but it's very simple. And then we just get like thrown off so quick. I do. I get thrown off so quick.
No, we all do.
Yeah.
It's easy to get thrown off because, like, I'll just share briefly. Like, I've had, like most people, the journeys of ups and downs through life. And like, when I kind of told that story, I don't know if you heard that piece of it, but when I came back from the Philippines, like, I was just completely eyes wide open, taking everything in, brand new perspective on life. I want something better for myself. And so I just had that deeper connection with God. And then over the years, you know, it kind of waned and things started to creep themselves back into my life. And it's just so interesting, man. Like, I just want to talk about pornography for a second. Because, so first of all, I think it's of no use to humanity into like building up character. But that like addiction fell off when I was there. I came back to the US, and it was these small, subtle things where it started to creep back into my life. And it was literally just like where I let my eyes go, and like, you know, they weren't bouncing, like they were sticking. And then that looking at something, and then, you know, it starts to like cultivate this just ever so slight thought. And then that thought grows. And then if I don't really confess that or work through that, then it starts to become, well, you know, I just look at that Instagram post a little longer, and then, you know, oh, I'm finding the next thing that's just like the next level. And it's like I saw myself go through this cycle to where like I fell back into that. And it still is a struggle. And I go up and down. Like, I'll be 1 month without it, and then, you know, 2 weeks where I just like fall back into it. It's like a remission situation. Then it's like 2 months off and on, and I'm still working through it. But what's so just crazy to me is like this idea that it's so hard to just constantly remember, but it's the small things that I do every single day and allow myself to think, or allow myself to see, or allow myself to taste. I mean, it's like with food, it can be with anything. Those little tiny small things can throw us off course really quick. But in the same manner, it's the small things that can bring us out of that. You can start to like pick up, honestly, trash off the ground. I'm a huge believer in like doing the things that seem an inconvenience but are small character builders. Yeah, like just crazy little things. Like I was running through the park the other day and there was this homeless person crying and I'm actually still upset at myself for not going and just being like, "Hey, are you okay?" Like,
Yeah.
and like talking with them. And there's these things that I have chosen not to do because it's an inconvenience, but I know and believe that when we do those little things for the cause of good, not motivated by fear, but motivated by like empathy and things like those are the things that can, if we build up that side of our life, then all the other stuff just kind of falls away. We lose
Yeah.
interest in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Well, the word I was thinking on last week was like integrity, right? Integrity. What is integrity? It's doing the right thing when no one's looking, right?
Mm, yeah.
That's the tough one. There's
Yeah.
no one looking. No one will know. What do I do?
Yeah.
That's integrity, like building integrity. Like the guys that I really look up to and like admire and kind of maybe try to not follow, emulate, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
To me, they have a lot of integrity is what they have. Like
Yeah.
now, the other thing I've learned also very recently is to be careful of thinking that people are somehow on a different level or putting them on a pedestal or thinking that they do no wrong because
Mm-hmm.
everybody's human and there's a lot of stuff going on that we don't know about. We just we can't tell. Um, another thing I learned in the program is like, whenever if I compare myself to you, the only perspective I have really of you is what you choose to show me about you.
Mm,
So it's kind of your outside, what's coming out. But then my perspective of what I'm comparing that to is my inside. So constantly what I'm actually doing is comparing what's inside me, my insides to your outsides.
mm,
And that's where I'm like trying to compare. And it's like, that'll never turn out well because nobody's outside truly reflects their like 100% what's inside.
mm,
So I have to be careful of that because I've built some people up in my mind and then you get really let down and you're like,
mm.
whoa,
Yeah.
what the heck happened there? I thought ABC.
Yeah.
Well, they're just a human being, just like you.
Mm-hmm.
And you thought they were perfect and they're not. So,
I wish if one thing that I really want to do if I ever get to a place where I have a lot of cash that I can just get rid of, I want to
uh,
buy like for a month maybe 5,000 different bulletin board or like ad boards on the interstate across the world and just
yeah,
put this quote up there where it says, "Let others be the witness for right and wrong, but never the standard of them." Because once we like you're talking about it's in every situation, every religion and every business circle and every whatever it is where there's a leader and followers, that leader, whoever it is, or that person we elevate in our mind, they quickly quit being the witness and they start becoming the standard. And then as soon as that person falters, like it's so easy to just whatever they were representing, good and bad, you kind of throw out the baby with the bathwater because
uh-huh,
it's so easy to do that. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, I feel like that's what happens with Christianity all the time. I
yeah.
mean, all the time.
Yeah, people leave it
Like
because somebody did this or somebody did that.
somebody did it, and it's like, man, that's a human being. That guy is not, even if he's wearing his black shirt and his collar, or he's really well spoken, or he knows theology back to front, like he's still just a guy. He's
Mm,
not actually God. So then to judge God off of something he did is like, why would we do that? But a lot of people do it.
yeah.
Yeah, that part really like saddens me when somebody's like super anti the idea of God, and if you really manage to like talk to them and connect to them, and you realize, oh, it's because this guy or this girl did that, and
Mhm.
they thought they were representing God, and now it's like just, I think you said it, throw the baby out with the bath, right? You're
Mhm.
like, I'm done with that. I don't want to.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really sad. But
I think there really is a reason why we're compared to being as sheep. all throughout the Bible. Because at the
Yeah.
end, because we like to follow, and
Oh,
we're looking for somebody to follow and someone to rescue us. Like that,
uh-huh.
it's a beautiful analogy too. At the same time, like I love sheep. They're this fluffy, cute little creatures, but man, they can be stupid. And I know
Uh-huh.
that, man, I can be stupid.
Funny. Yeah.
Can I ask you if it's okay, a couple of questions about the, I guess, just the coming back in your marriage and that just message of hope?
Sure.
So, I guess the first question I'd love to ask is, um, and really it's kind of selfish because my wife and I, we've been married going on 8 years in June, and we've had some ups and downs, obviously. Most notably, I think 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we went through a section where she was like, she brought up the divorce word, and immediately after that, obviously it hurt really bad on my end with just my own baggage of being like, oh, I'm gonna get left. But we went to like separate counselors and counseling together, and we walked away from that after about 6 months of her being, more committed, honestly, probably than I was when it was kind of flip flopped before that. And we're in a decent place now, but I know that with every cyclical movement, there's always going to be another time in life when we have both the opportunity to like give up on marriage and like, oh, it'd be easier to do this. Not that that's even necessarily the case. So for you, like obviously there's not one little thing that was the catalyst that brought you guys back together, but through some of these things that you've been going through and the steps that you took to like bring that harmony back in that relationship, what are some things that you've learned that other people could take and like try to remember as they go through those hard times that they may approach in any relationship in the future? Maybe we need to get Amy on here as well. And
Seriously. Um, I mean, bottom line, if you want to keep it really simple, for me, if I want to be married, I have to accept that I'm not in charge.
mm,
I'm not in charge, which is, I think, is a truth, a universal truth of life anyway. I'm really not in charge of anything.
yeah.
I may think I'm the little boss here in this pool area or something, or I'm in charge of, I think I'm in charge of everything, right? My brain tells me that the world revolves around me
Mm,
and I'm in charge and I control stuff and I can't control stuff. But that's just a big lie from the beginning. And so then just to like bring that down, then within my marriage, I still have this like desire really to like be in charge and I want stuff to be my way and I want it to, revolve around me. And I think with that mindset, like the thing cannot work. Um, and I don't know if it's for the guy to submit himself in all the cases, or whether it has more to do with the personality of the two people, and sometimes it's the female. I don't know. I know in my case, like I have to submit myself to her. I choose, like, hey, I'm going to be here for her, not for me, which is really hard for a dude like me,
mm,
like really hard. Because number one, I look at that as like soft. No one pushes me around. No one tells me what to do, let alone a girl, let alone her.
mm,
And so that's like a really big mind shift for me of like, hey, I have to, and the only way I can do that is if I really trust her. I have to really, I'm going to submit myself to you and I'm not going to be in charge. I'm going to let you be in charge. Um, I have to really trust that you're not going to do me wrong or do us wrong. Um, and that's what's given me the confidence to do that better,
mm-hmm,
like submit better, is if I really think about it, I'm like, wow, she's amazing. She is out for the best of us and me. And anytime I think she's not, I'm just getting it twisted up in my head. She is.
mm-hmm.
She is. She's not out to screw me. She's
Yeah, it's
not trying to
trust.
she's not trying to hurt me. She's not trying to deliberately be a pain in my ass. Like she's coming from a good place. As she tells me many times, she's like, I'm a good person. I'm a good person. I love you. I'm coming from a good place. And yeah, that's true. And so I have to trust that. And then if I've got that, then I can just submit myself. I don't have to be in control of it all.
Mm.
And then things like flow a lot better. As soon as I stick my heels in on almost anything and it becomes just a right fight, then it's a disaster. As
Mm.
much as I believe like in that moment, like, but I'm right. I'm right. Fighting for that, whatever it is, doesn't even matter what it is for me. Now I've realized if I want to be married, like that's how I gotta be. And I mean, you could have asked me even 5 years into my marriage, and people that I'd heard it, like you've got to submit yourself to her, but I just couldn't do it. Couldn't really do it. Like I didn't trust her enough, I guess, or I was just too stuck in my way. And I'm not saying I'm perfect either, Seth. I'm not like, oh yeah, now I just like, yes ma'am all the time. Yes ma'am, yes ma'am, yes ma'am. But
Yeah.
on like a deeper level, I like try and like, hey, just you may be right, man. She
Mm-hmm.
may be right. Just let it go. You may be right. And just in doing that, it just makes everything work a lot better. So for me, it's like that simple. Like, dude, just submit. Just submit. And that doesn't mean that I'm like, will you cut this part out? Well, no, right now, this exact part, just right here. Like, that doesn't make me a pussy
Yeah.
just because I'm like, hey, I submit to my wife.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not, she doesn't handcuff me up or like, I'm just like, hey, I have to, because they can't be, and I don't know if it's with every marriage or just mine. Like I said, sometimes maybe
Right.
the wife has to submit. I don't know, but somebody has to like be willing to give.
Yeah.
Somebody has to be willing, probably both to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
But in my relationship, I'm the one who has to be able to give a little. Have to. If I don't, I've
Yeah.
tried,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I can't get it just. And then,
Yeah.
whereas if I like go, hey, dude, it's just devil's right at it. I just go like that. Whereas if I go, no, 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 no,
Mm-hmm.
no, no,
Yeah.
no, no, like, and then it just explodes out the top. If I
Yeah.
can just go one level down, then it's like, whoa. And it works every single time. So it's like, well, why don't you always do that, Justin?
Yeah.
I don't know, because I'm still a human and I got start thinking that my way is going to work better.
Yeah, I think you're touching on several different things there, at least that ring true in my experience. And again, I've only been married for going on 8 years, so I still have a lot of wisdom to be gained and experience to be gained. But for me, I love control. So if I can't control a situation, I get really in trouble. So like just to make it super practical, and my wife and I, usually during stressful times, like her starting this new job or whatever, the chances for me to dig my heels in on top of the other decisions I've been making that have kind of led me to more of like I guess we'll call it the fear-based mindset, or where I'm more obsessed with having control. We'll come to a disagreement. She'll need space. I want to get fire in the foxhole and get this thing out in the open, and she needs a little time and space. And I'm like, well, no, I need this, so we should do what I want. Yeah, like it doesn't work out. It actually never works out whenever I do that. But whenever I
Yeah.
give her space or come around, then like it usually works out. And honestly, like I've had experiences where I knew, quote unquote, I knew that I was right and that she was giving in to more of the fear mindset, and because I just decided, like, you know what, like, okay, like we're gonna go your way, then she has later come back around to me and be like, you know what, like this wasn't exactly the best
Yeah.
decision. Here's why. And I'm not saying that has to happen for it to be a healthy relationship, but something really that has profoundly impacted me too is when my wife and I were about to get married. Um, we fought a lot during our engagement, probably more than we should have. And my wife just came back from overseas for a year, and I got engaged with her when she was overseas, and she was having a really just terrible year in Papua, Indonesia. She came back home, was rushed into wedding planning, all this stuff. So it was a lot of tension. And her dad sat down with us both, and he's like, "Look, you guys don't have to get married." And it was in that moment when I decided, you know what? I probably could marry another girl who's not a firstborn, who is not so similar to me in terms of type A. I want to be the leader in this situation. But I realized that in that moment, that part is going to be hard in our marriage. And that's okay because there's nobody else on this earth who has ever been able to sit across from me when I'm having a mental breakdown and switch from being like, a rah, rah, rah person to where she like switches to be a comforter. As soon as she sees me being lonely or like feel like alone or lost in what's ever going on, she's able to look at me and talk me through that in a way that no one else has ever been able to do in my life. And I think the reason I bring that up is I think that there are people that we could marry that it could be quote unquote easier. We could be easier going. But I don't think that that's necessarily the right decision to make, because if you do have what it takes to struggle through with the self and figure out how to lay that person down to die, because like Jesus died for us, knowing full well that there's going to be a lot of people that just throw him to that cross and spit on him and drive nails in his hands. But he still chose to enter that relationship with each and every one of us, not for just the ones who are going to be a little more easygoing. And so if
Yeah.
I can have the prayer like, okay, God, how do I see my wife like you see your church? Like that almost brings me to tears because it's so hard. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to get to that point. But if I can have that mindset and, like you said, submit or lay down my life or being willing to
Yeah.
like let go of being right, then I think that's where that's when you can truly win a heart over. And that other person is almost forced by the laws of love to then reconfigure what's going on up here. Because if we have a shouting match, it's really easy to shout. But if someone shouts and the other person has a calm answer, that wrath is like almost unfounded, and it like
Mhm.
if unless that person is just completely far gone,
Yeah.
it like really it really
Yeah.
can like kind of be like, wait, this isn't how I thought this was gonna go. So yeah,
What's interesting about what you said there, because that word submit is weird for me, you know what I mean? But
yeah, it's convoluted. It has a lot of
how it
baggage with it.
how different it is, and in me and you's cases, submitting is actually the complete opposite, right? So in your case, you said you're more, hey, we want to sort this out right now. Let's get it out in the open. Let's figure it out. And she's like, hey, I need time and I want to like process. And your way of submitting is, hey, I'll hold my horses here and we'll let you have your time and we'll figure it out.
Hmm.
And in me and Amy's case, it's completely the opposite, right? She wants to, she lives by this, hey, do not let the sun go down in anger.
Mm.
We're going to figure this out right now. We're going to sort it out. I don't like this tension. I want to like get it sorted out. And I'm like, not so much if I'm being honest. It's not that I need time. I don't want to deal with it. I just want to like, let's just leave it and maybe
Yeah,
it'll go away. But
yeah.
so for me, submitting is, hey, I have to be able to engage. So
Mm.
where yours submitting is, hey, I have to be able to give it time. My submitting is, man, I got to sit here and actually engage with her on this, not let myself get all riled up, but still engage with it. Far rather just be like, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it. I want to, because like the actual mechanics of what submitting looks like is like
Hmm.
completely different. Like it's opposite. Right?
Yeah,
Submitting for me is, man, I've got to engage.
yeah,
Submitting for you is, hey, I got to just let it go and wait.
yeah.
So yeah, I don't know that submitting is the right word, but whatever I'm trying to say there, it's that idea of like,
Just let go of what you think should happen in the
yeah, the
moment.
control, what you said about, our need to control and be in control of stuff when in reality, as I said earlier, like, we're not in control of
Hmm.
nothing. I can't control. In the rooms, we say we can't control anything except our own reaction to a situation. That's the only control we have is, hey, I can control whether I kick that chair because you tick me off or
Mm.
I smile at you and, say, hey, have a nice day. I can control my reaction to the environment. But to think I can somehow control the environment, it's just a lie. And we really believe we can at points.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
So,
No, yeah. Yeah, I've been there many times,
yeah.
truly and honestly. But I just have to share this one thing. I think it's really good too that me and you do have kind of different sides of the same coin that we're dealing with, because so my best friend, actually, I'm learning, is very similar to you. He's actually really similar to my wife, and I think you're similar to my wife. And I think it's really important to have multiple friends who kind of almost can identify a little bit more with the opposite sex in that
Uh-huh.
relationship, because I have many times, there's something about being able to communicate with man to man or woman to woman, where you can kind of get on the same wavelength. But the fact that you can relate to my wife and we can both have like this guy to guy conversation really wakes me up at times. Like when I talk to my best friend Daniel, he's like, "Have you ever considered this, you idiot?"
Yeah. Yeah.
and and he doesn't say that because he's super nice, but it's so good to have those kinds of friendships. Which again, like all parts of the body of Christ, that's what you got to have. You got to
Yeah.
have that diversity. That's what diversity is. You get me started
Yeah.
on that stuff, but diversity is diversity of thought, diversity of experience, not
Yeah.
diversity of
Yeah.
any of that junk. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
But well, Justin, thank you so much for taking the time
You're welcome, man.
to hear what's going on. You have enriched my day. I'm so glad we were able to have this. It's the first podcast I've recorded at 8 a.m. and I don't regret it. It's a great way to start my morning. So I really appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you being able to do it early, because like I said on the text, I'm like, oh man, once my day starts going, it just
It doesn't
stuff
stop.
comes up, and I'm like, man, should I really be sitting doing a podcast, or have I
Yeah.
got to take care of this little? But no, thanks a lot for having me, man. I don't know. It's weird that you would want to talk to me, but I'll take it.
Yeah, no, man, it's great. I really do. When I met you for the first time, when I came there, and you said like you made that comment about having your own water, like that really hit me, because I've never heard anybody talk about something in that kind of an abstract way, and I was like, oh, I gotta have a conversation with this guy. I'm sure he's a deep thinker.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
Yeah. Cool, man.
yeah.
Well, I'm going to try and listen to a few more of your podcasts. Next year, I will listen to a few more of your podcasts.
All right, sounds good. I'll hold you to it
Yeah.
next time we talk.
Yeah. Give me some questions. So, did you see that one? You see that?
Yeah, for sure.
What's your favorite?
Oh, that's unfair. Favorite
Is it-
podcast?
No,
Oh,
your
okay.
favorite like something where you're like, dude, that was not your favorite. Tell me like a really profound one where you're like, this person said this to me, or
Oh man, I've had quite a few now.
yeah,
I'm trying to think back. Like, so I got a few. And I'll try to share them relatively quickly. But so
yeah.
one that I did not too long ago was with I think it was like episode 110, Carl Wilkins. He's a family member through my wife's side of the family, and he was the only American to stay in Rwanda during the Rwandan genocide in the 1990s.
Okay, yeah.
And we got to talking about something, and he asked a question in such a way that had me just share what I was thinking, and it touched on a nerve to where I like came to tears there for a second, and I realized like, wow, I need to dive into that, and I can't even at this moment remember exactly what it is, so maybe it wasn't
Okay.
profound enough. But
I'm gonna go listen to that one.
so that one was good. Another one that I had with Nicole Falcaro, the round 2 interview with her. She was on RTS, professional triathlete. She was sharing just some really personal and deep stuff about the relationship she was currently in, where she was thinking about like, is this going to be the thing where we get married or we don't? And the fact that she was able and willing to kind of go so deep on more of like a public forum, even though it's just a one-on-one conversation, like really impacted me. And I was like, I need to respect this microphone a lot more, because if people are willing to go that deep, then I because of my ADD at times, like sometimes I can get kind of sidetracked in my own thought and like not be engaged in the conversation. And I was like, I really need to always be listening to this person, because if they're taking the step, because I know how hard it is to share things, if they're taking the step to share something that's on their heart, then like, yeah, like I need to respect this even more. So I try to continually
What was her name?
keep that. Nicole Falcaro, Falcaro, I think it is.
What number was that?
I'll send it to you. I think it was like 90 something in there, 80 something. Yeah. There's so many though, man. Like I'm always surprised. There's some that I'm like, oh, I'm like nervous to do this, or I always get like these little jitters, and yeah, because just I don't really know why. It's when in person, I feel like I can really connect with almost anyone, like in the physical presence. But sometimes there's a disconnect on here, and you're not getting my full body language, and I'm not getting there. So it's like I'm always a little like, oh no, is this gonna go well? But honestly, 99.9% of the time, there's only been one episode that I thought didn't go well, and then the person thought it went great. So I was like, well, then it doesn't even matter what I think. Yeah,
That.
yeah. So
And not how many, but do you get a lot where you actually ask someone, hey, you come and do an interview, and like they just won't do it or don't respond or won't?
there's been a few. Usually the telltale sign is, yeah, hey, here's my manager. If you want to talk to them, I'd love to do it. Yeah, I'm usually like, okay, well, that's a no. Like, yeah, I'll just.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've tried to get Taylor Spivey on for a long time, and her manager, she's great, but she's like not been able to make it
Which one is
happen.
that?
Taylor Spivey, she's a professional. She was at the Olympics. Jordan is her manager, and maybe Jordan will give me some junk now for bringing her out on the podcast like this. But if you don't let me in, no. So there's been a few people, but honestly, most people say yes, and I'm shocked that they say yes. Probably because it's a stupid questions podcast name. They're like, oh, that sounds stupid.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. You get to do
what I love, man.
Yeah.
What I really want to do is I want to start going in person, like to travel to see some of these people and like set up conversations. That would be so
like sit opposite them and talk. Yeah.
Yeah, like follow them around for a few days. Like really, it's a form of journalism. I never have thought about it until I started doing this. Like, oh, I think I would really enjoy journalism. Like helping bring out the story of somebody's experience and then put that in that light and give that to other people to like learn from.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good for you, dude.
Yeah, man.
And you're coming here soon, you said?
Yeah. So February 14th, I think it's a Friday, either Saturday or Sunday. I'm gonna drive there and stay with Mark for a bit. So I'll try to come by and swim a few times.
Well, Mark doesn't come here.
I know he's so like in his own his own thing.
So yesterday, because Simon's been swimming here. And so Simon wasn't here yesterday, but his fiance was. And I'm like, oh, where's Simon? Oh no, he's swimming with Mark over at the other. Like, oh, I didn't say anything, and then one of the other swimmers is like, yeah, he doesn't like coming here, and I'm like, what doesn't he like? Like he said, he doesn't like the surprise of what we might do. I'm like, oh really?
Yeah,
Mark obviously likes to control the whole workout.
Yeah, I think he does, because like whenever I was there and came for the first time, like he got out early. He's like, "Oh, I was only supposed to swim this today or whatever," and I think he's pretty protective about that. Which I need to bug him about that. That'd be good. It'd be good to get that on a podcast. Why don't you?
Yeah, when he said, tell him. You guys almost got me that one day, and if I'd had more time, I would have stuck around. That was so weird. Do you remember that?
No, what happened?
You guys got on a live. You did that on Instagram. You were like live streaming, and I was doing something with my phone, and I think I just wanted to watch you guys. Maybe I'm like, oh, they're live, and then you guys are like, hey, Coach Justin's here, and I'm like, oh, like something was going on. I'm like, I gotta go.
Yeah, we need to do that again.
Yeah.
It'd be fun to have him, but we'll give him some junk. We'll try to get to this.
Yeah, maybe we need. I want to give Mark a hard time.
Yeah,
and I told whoever it was, I'm like, hey, you tell Mark that if he thought that it was hard or a big surprise last time he was here, now that I know that, when he comes in, if he ever can get up and get here again, I'm gonna make it double that.
12,000 yards.
Yeah, it's gonna be like nothing like you've ever experienced, Mark, just to show you what it could be.
That's so funny. I'll try to make him come then when I come visit.
Yeah. It'd be like, dude, Justin said it's gonna be just the worst for you.
Yeah. I'll send him this clip. I'm gonna text him right after this. Can I ask you one more question?
Mark just gets to cruise through it on the swim always.
I know. He's such
You know what I mean? He's such a good swimmer that he just cruises through. And then when it comes here, I'm like, no, it doesn't matter how good of a swimmer you are.
Yeah,
Dude.
get over
You're
there in
gonna
that
like
first lane. You're gonna.
do this
Mhm.
hard like the rest of them. And he's like, I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
I'm front pack anyway.
Oh, get him, man, get him.
Uh,
Can I ask you actually one more question really quick about swimming?
yeah,
Something I've been wondering.
yeah.
So I if anything, if my assumptions about any of this is wrong, tell me that it's wrong, and I'd be curious to know why or whatever. But so I coach myself for swimming now. It's early in the season, so I'm just swimming a lot of yards, but I will use oftentimes like a swim buoy and paddles just to keep my heart rate lower and like do longer sets than that. And I'm noticing that it's easier for me to be like, oh, let me just go put my paddles and buoy on because it's like easier. I can still swim like a decently fast or whatever
Yeah.
without it. Is it bad to swim like 20, 30, or even 40% of your workout in that? Like, is it going to pull me back, you think, if I continue to rely on that as much?
So I'd say two things about the equipment stuff, the pool and the paddle specific.
Yeah.
If you make yourself the rule, I won't reach for it. So it's going to be a little harder when you're training yourself. But if it's a planned thing, like you go to I don't know how you're doing it, but if you go to the pool and you're like, hey, this is my workout, whether it's in your mind or in your little plastic bag, or you write it on the board before you start, or wherever it is, if you have that workout, the parts that are pool buoy and paddles, use them, even if that's 40% of the time. But if it's not part of the plan, don't just reach for it because the going got tough.
Got it.
Don't that's what a lot of them will do. So we're on like, hey, this is 21s on 120, every fourth one hard. And at 12, they're like, the guys who don't swim in a group like this or have a coach holding them accountable, as soon as it gets hard, you'll just see their hand go up there and grab ask Elliot Buck, example number one. Just go and grab it and like, oh, and I'll be like, So that would be the first thing. Like if it's part of your workout plan, if you're like, hey, I'm going, my main set, I'm warming up 1,000, and then my main set is 12,200s, descend every 4, or what, and then I'm going to go, 2 500s freestyle pull with pool buoy and paddles. Cool. But then in the middle of that main set where it wasn't part of the plan, don't reach for the pool buoy and paddles.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I would say is, and you already said it, like it makes it so much easier. Well, and you're going to get in on the swim on your race, and you're not going to have it.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to have, you might have the wetsuit that maybe offsets the pool buoy a little, but you ain't going to have those paddles.
Yeah, 100%.
So if you're using them to like build strength, sure. But if you're using them because, oh man, now I can keep up and I can go faster and I can feel better about myself, I guess that's okay as long as you realize that's what it is.
Yeah.
But as soon as you take them off, you're back to our little pause, and it's like,
yeah.
So, because I went through a period, man, where I was like, no pedals for like, man, I want to say Lionel's first 2 years here, no pedals, no using pedals, not allowed to bring them in here. Now we use them plenty. But it's part of their plan. You can't just put them on in the halfway through the main set because you're good.
Yeah.
No way. Good
mindset building.
So a percentage-wise, I don't know if there's a right percentage to use.
Yeah.
But just always keep in your mind, like, man, I'm going to have to do that race. Are you racing sprint or half or full?
Halves and fulls, yeah.
Halves and full. I mean, dude, you're going to swim 4,000 with no equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you've done a lot of your yards with those pedals on.
I'm throwing them away.
No, don't throw them away. Don't throw them away. But just have it be a part, like, use them a little to warm up or have them as part of whatever you're making. Give me a workout. Like, what's your workout for you? What did you do yesterday?
What did I do yesterday? I didn't swim yesterday, but this morning it was like 400 warm up, 6x300.
You swam before this?
Yeah.
Good job, dude.
I swam and ran. Come on, man. Who do you think I am?
Did you really?
I did. I was like a treadmill. My wife wanted to get it. She's been on this kick, getting up at 5 a.m. to do this strength class. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go run and then I'm going to swim. Let's get it done. So,
nice. So what was your swim? Let me hear.
I was 400 warm up, and it was supposed to be 6x300, but I did 400, no paddles. I swam 300 without paddles, and then I put on the paddles. I swam 600, did a 300 without, and then I was like, I'm just gonna swim straight 1,000 or 1,200. So then I swam 1,200
Tell me
with
what the
paddles.
set was.
It was supposed to be 6 times 300, but it
Okay,
was,
stop right there. So you're supposed to do 6 times 300,
and I just, yeah, it was
and you
terrible.
just did whatever.
Yeah, I just got in there. I was like,
Yeah,
just
so
gonna swim it straight.
that's you gotta hold yourself accountable, set on that. You gotta be like, dude, it's 6 threes. I'm doing these 6 threes. And then my reward for doing the 6 threes, I'll put my paddles and my pool boy on afterwards, and I'll go another 1,000 with them on and end up feeling good. But just struggle that main set, unless it was planned at 6 threes, first 2 with
No, I
swim,
wasn't.
next 2 with paddles, next 2 with pool boy and paddles. But try not to. That's the best part about having a coach or a group, right? And that's what they tell me. It's not what we're doing. It's the fact there's someone up there saying, hey, this is what we do, and we're going to make, unless you do break, you just get out. But you're going to you're going to do it. And
Yeah.
somebody's there, holding you accountable on it. You wouldn't be able to do that here, right? You would be like,
Right.
oh man, I got to do my 4 300. He's going to know if I miscounted. He's going to know if I grab my pool boy.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. You went 300, then you did 100. Then you did a 600 with paddles. Then you did
Yeah, and just 1,000 or 1,200. I was like, whatever. I just want to get this done because, like, right now it's just like a lot of yards, and yeah, I want to swim with a group. I need to start swimming with the masters, but
so your plan was 400 warm up, 6 threes. That's 1,800. So that's 22. Then what was after that?
I think it was supposed to be. It may have been 2 500s and then a cool down for 3,000. It was a pretty short swim.
Oh, you mean for a total of 3,000, or
Yeah.
warm down another 3,000?
No. It was total
For a
of
total of
3,000. Yeah.
That's not really high yards though, dude, right?
No, it's not.
No.
Yeah, it's like 3,000. I'm doing like 12,000 yards a week right now. I'll bump it up next week, and I'll start throwing in some 4s and eventually 5s when we get.
So on your 3,000 workout,
Mm-hmm.
make sure I would warm up more than 400. Warm up more. Warm up like 6, 7, 8. Then hit that solid main set like that. That 1,800, that's awesome. 1,800, just 1,800. But that should be swimming and on interval
Mm-hmm.
and at a prescribed pace. Like, hey, on those 6 300s, so that it gives you some purpose. Like, hey, I'm going to do the first 2 at 90%. And then I'm going to, on the next 2, I can just cruise. And then on the last 2, I'm going to pick them up to 90% again. And then hold yourself on the clock. Like, did I do that?
Mm-hmm.
Did I do the first 2 in 5:30, and then I managed to go 5:15, 5:15. Sorry, 5:30, 5:30, and then I went up to 6 minutes and 6 minutes on my cruises, and then I came back down to 5:30. You know what I mean? Like whatever it is. Like those paces I just gave you, like if you're swimming close to 2 minutes 100, you can do it at any level, right? If it was Mark, it would be like, hey, you're going to do the first 2, you're going to go 312, 312, 312, and then you can go 340, 340, but then back down to 312, 312. Like, so you just know for yourself, like, I'm going to follow that pattern. And it just keeps you like mentally even more engaged. And I got to swim these 6 300s, I guess, unless I get.
Yeah, I know. I've been lazy on that. I've been too lazy. That's good feedback. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Where do you get your workout?
I have a whole library of ones that I've built and some of my old coaches have built, and then I used ChatGPT just to build some recently, but I didn't throw in all the paces. Like I know, I can
Swimming
swim.
in a yard pool?
Yeah, 25 yard. Yep. They don't open the meter pool until summer, basically.
So on your 300 yard, so let's say you had done your first 300, just swim straight. And you swam it at like 80%. You just swam it, just chilling, not crazy. What would you have gone on that 300, do you think? Do you have any idea?
The pace would be like probably 122 per 100. So what?
Okay, so you would be going around 406, 410, right? So then you would want to put yourself on, hey, my 300s, I'm going to be going about 410. Definitely want like 30 seconds rest. Hey, let me put them on 440. I'm just going to put them on 440. Like if you put them on an interval, and then you have yourself on a pace, man, it just makes all the difference. I feel like it just makes all the difference.
Yeah.
It gives you like a purpose. And it doesn't have to be Mark's pace or
Mm-hmm.
Simon's pace or Sam's pace or his
Yeah.
pace or her
That
pace. Like, it's
effort.
just yours. And that way you're kind of setting yourself where you know, and then you start to see the subtle improvements, which if you're not doing that, you don't sense or see, and then you don't feel like you're making any progress when you actually were, but you didn't notice them, so then they went away.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
that's what I do with them anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go change all of them now. I've been inspired. Thank you for answering the question. I can tell you love coaching, so that's a beautiful thing.
I seriously, you're like, hey, one little question, and I'm like 20 minutes on like 6-300s, man. I love 6-300.
Yeah. No, 300s are fun. They're not too hard, not too easy. You can go hard for a
Yeah,
good distance. So.
breathe it hot.
Yeah. I think what really got in my head, man, is because I did the world champs. It was wetsuit, and I swam 5 minutes behind Greg Harper and Mark. So I was like, okay, well, like I'm an age grouper, like that's not terrible.
Yeah.
But I went into it kind of lax. The first half of the year, I was swimming really with a lot of mindset, like, okay, a purpose. But then I kind of got a little lazy, and then I swam so decently. I was like, well, that was my fastest ever half Ironman swim, so maybe I'll do that again. But I think I'm lacking the purpose. So this has been good for me to get back into the.
Yeah.
I need to go in there with
that's awesome.
with a pump.
That's probably because you were just relaxed and you're like, hey, I'm just gonna swim, which is really the mindset
Dude,
you want most of the time.
I kid you not, I was crying in the water. So Taupo was so beautiful and clear. I could see the bottom of the water, but I just like felt so good on the swim, and I was just cruising past people. I was like, this is the most beautiful moment of my life. My mom was there. Like I came out of the water, and he's like 27 minutes. I was like, oh, that's fantastic. And and so it was such a good day. Yeah, it was a pretty cool experience.
Awesome, dude.
Yeah, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Hey, good chatting.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much to Justin for coming on the pod again for a second time and letting me ask some more deep questions and just connect with him and hear about what's been going on in his life. It is an honor and a pleasure to get to go deep with people and hear about the stories that they're learning and living. And yeah, it's just an honor and a pleasure to be able to do that. So thank you so much, Justin. If you made it to this point in the podcast, though, just want to say thank you so much for being here. No matter where you're listening or watching, if you could like, comment, subscribe, review, any and all those things do continue to help grow the podcast, and it would mean the world to me if you could do that, because it allows me to justify continuing to make these podcasts, which are so much fun. So thank you so much for being here, and I will catch you guys in the next one. See ya.